righty, we're going to start our study session. I'll know on Monday on number 8. Counselor Thompson. Oh.
I have items number 9 through 11. If anybody has questions on them, Chief Cecil. On the shot spotter, is this? Are they purchasing an additional shot spotter? Or is this just to cover the ones that are in existence?
Correct. Yeah, it's just a renewal of the ones we currently have.
Okay.
And how is that working, Chief, with the shot spotter? Is that giving you accurate information?
Yeah, it is pinpointing them right down to within a 5 by 5 square foot area, sometimes even smaller than that. So it's working out very well. Where it's really working out is in the investigative stage, where sometimes we would become completely unaware that a shooting occurred unless we got the shot spotter. Many times neighbors call, but then sometimes they don't, and shot spotter picks up everything. So we're getting a lot of those, and we're able to investigate shootings that we would not normally even know about till the next day.
So the shot spotter, when it's shots fired, does it send a signal to downtown? Does it send a signal?
Sure. What happens is it sends it actually out to California, to a database in California, to a bunch of experts there that within a matter of 3 to 5 seconds determine that it is an actual shots fired as opposed to the backfire of a muffler or fireworks. And then that signal is triangulated with all those sensors around the city. It's triangulated, again, within 5 to 10 seconds, the whole process comes back to us, goes to 911 with the location of the shots fired. And then 911 dispatches based on that location. Officers in their cars also have it on their computers, and many of the officers even have it on their cell phones, where they can pick it up as soon as it comes back within that 5 to 10 second period, and they know exactly where it's pinpointing the shots fired took place. And in most cases, we are arriving on scene and finding the shell casings exactly where shot spotter is telling us they are.
How much of the city is covered? Where does ShotSpotter pick up the shots? Is it in the entire width of the city, or?
No, we wish it was, but for the first test phase, which we're past beyond now, the money that we had allotted, I believe it's 1.2 square miles coverage. It's almost all of the West End and then parts of the South Side. We picked those areas, obviously, because that's where we have most of our shots fired, but it's not the whole city at all.
It says 3.5 square miles in the material, which is like a tenth. The city's 25 square miles, to give you some context.
Sure, I didn't hear I'm sorry, I didn't.
I was just saying that in this, I read that it was 3.5 square miles that the 227,000 pays for, but then the city is like 25 square miles, so that gives a little context. It's a little more than a tenth of the city that we're covering. So is that coverage is there an ideal that we would want to cover, and is there any kind of economy of scale if we were to cover more of the city in purchasing this type of equipment?
Sure, Councilor, and I could have been off. You have the numbers in front of me. The 1.2 I mentioned might have been wrong. But we would certainly like to cover more. In fact, what we're finding is we get shots fired. We get shot spotter notifications for the fringes where this thing ends. It still picks them up, but it's only picking up with one sensor. It's not triangulating it. So we'll go there and not find the scene, even though somewhere around there was a shots fired. So we would certainly like to expand this program. Yeah.
Chief, I know one of the goals of this program was that it was going to be sort of a force extender for the department, being that previously we would get calls that shots were fired in a general area, and we'd have to dispatch several officers sort of to locate the scene.
Right.
And it sort of took a lot more time. Have you found that with this we've been able to dispatch the closest officer to the scene and to get working on the case faster?
Oh, absolutely. Without a doubt, we are getting to the scene quicker than we ever got before. Again, sometimes they weren't even called in, but even if they were called in, you have the neighbor or the resident saying, I heard shots fired. I'm not sure what direction it came in. Could have been over here, could have been over there. This shot spotter is narrowing it down. So we're not only getting there quicker, getting to the exact location quicker than ever before. And there are a couple instances that I can mention where we actually arrived. Everyone had dispersed by the time we got there, but in a search of the area around where the shell casings were, we did recover a handgun. That happened in 2 or 3 cases where we located a handgun left there by the shooter. So, and that would have never happened before either, because we would have arrived We would have tried to find the scene. It would have taken us a little bit longer, and probably that gun would have been picked up and taken away.
And is it freeing up other officers who would have been working the scene to move forward on the case or to work on other things?
It's getting us there quicker. To answer that one question, as far as freeing us up, you have to keep in mind, because we're now getting more calls than we ever got before. As far as shots fired, it's probably tying up more officers, because we are getting a lot. Most of our calls for crime around the city are down in almost every category, but not in shots fired. They're off the charts because we didn't have this technology before, and we were relying just on the residents to call it in. So now that category is higher, and we have to respond to each one of these, because we don't know whether it's an actual person hit or not.
So is it possible that we did have sort of the same number of shots fired in the past, but we may not have reported them all, or we may not have followed up on them all?
Without a doubt, yeah. I'm sure that's accurate. Sure.
But not to belabor what Councilor Boyle said, though, and she asked, did they get there quicker? But I think you said it. You said that actually some of the officers have it right in their car, correct? So once it hits, if they know it's hitting from their car or their phone, then that gives them the opportunity to converge right then, correct?
Right, it does, absolutely. And say you have an officer that's already out on a burglary taking a report. He sees that shot spotter come across his phone, and he's a block and a half away. He's going to very likely tell the dispatcher, hold me out on this burglary, I'm heading that way. So yeah, it works that way as well. Yeah.
So, go ahead. No.
I think most of us agree this is like a smart investment and exactly the type of thing we should be doing. It makes us more effective. It makes our staff more efficient. So with that in mind, could you help us understand how much it would cost to cover the whole city, what it would cost to cover half the city, what you think we should be covering at a minimum, since it seems like we probably would like to have more coverage?
Yeah, absolutely. I can't right now, but we can get that analysis for you. Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. That's actually what I was going to say. So we'll go to number 10.
Great minds
Are there
think
any
alike.
questions?
Sure. Number 10 is just we transferred over some money for computer upgrades. The software gets old very quickly, so we're just upgrading some computers. I don't know if you have questions about that. I think it came with an attachment.
Yep.
Explains it more in detail.
Then number 11, the school.
Sure. Number 11 is our MOU with the school district that goes over the cost of the program and specific job descriptions for the officers that work in the schools as SROs.
I got a quick question. So, when I was at Corcoran, the police would be outside afterwards, going down the street. Are the cops in all schools?
No, we only currently have them in the 4 high schools, or if you count ITC, which is a high school, we have them in the 5 high schools. Nowhere else.
I need to ask a question on that, because I had a conversation and I'm hearing that there are some issues still going on in a particular high school.
Yeah.
So how many officers is this going to cover? Do
Sure.
you know?
Here's the thing. In the past, our arrangement with the school district was 5. They paid for 5, and we paid for 4, meaning the city. This new MOU is going to allot them the number of officers they want, and the number that they want, that they ask us for, is the number they're going to pay for.
The 5.
Well, if they ask us for more than 5, they're going to pay for more than 5. I just got that direction from the deputy mayor. So, and that wasn't currently in here before.
The relationship is very important. We're working in conjunction, in collaboration with the school district. We are ready to deploy as many as feasibly possible officers to the school district. This agreement lets them determine how many beyond the 5 they need in their schools. So if there's another school that may not be a high school that we may need to have an officer in, the school district can make that determination.
Let me just ask this question though. So are you doing, because I know that our numbers are down with police officers, period. So the folks that's going into the schools, are they retired police? I mean, what are they?
No, they're fully off. They're not retired at all. They're officers that would normally be on the street are now working in the schools.
Yeah, that's a little touchy for me.
Have they indicated they want to request more police and more schools?
There's been discussions, did you put this up, Sharon? You must be taller than me. Everybody puts the mic up. Everyone but me puts this mic up. When I got up here, it was like a Tim Rudd, Councilor Rudd.
It's the heels.
Okay. There's always been discussions that they wanted more. I know that it was even budgeted at one time that they wanted to put more, I think 9 more officers and put them in the middle schools and the elementary schools. But to answer someone else's question, we didn't have the numbers at the time to do that, even if they had it budgeted, and they did budget for it. So there's been discussions along that line. I think they're certainly interested in doing that. And the mayor and the deputy mayor have been very good about letting us hire if it came down to it. And we were already hiring a class, and the school district said, we dedicate this money for whatever, 5, 6, 7 officers. We could add that number to the academy and it wouldn't be the new officers going to the school district, but we would add that number to the academy, and then when they got out, we could put officers into the schools to fill those spots if it was already budgeted.
So you think currently, if there was a request next week to fill the middle schools, we would not be able to fill that?
I don't see how we would accommodate that right now.
Not with our current staffing.
Okay, thank you.
And that brings another question, though, and I'm going to talk to Councilor Boyle about it, because when we talk about police officers, we have organizations out here that's working against violence. We have the trauma team, we have SNUG, we have all of these folks. So we're going to take resources from the streets. You know, I mean, we need to really think about how we're spreading this out. So that's just my concern.
I would agree. We have some great violence prevention partners that could possibly play a role. Part of their scope and their ability and their qualifications is understanding the neighborhoods and understanding of many of the youth that the district may need assistance with. So.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
Thanks.
Councilor Rudd.
Item 12, I believe is ready. We received all the documents that we asked for, and I would just add commentary that I think most of us look forward to the day where we don't have to have developers submit entire rolls of blueprints but are able to do it electronically. That'll probably be a big step forward someday. So I'm going to call 12 ready. 13, would you like to?
Good afternoon, councilors. Yes, item number 13 is an exemption for 1818 South Salina Street, the Ashley Arms. That's recently been taken over by Housing Visions. They want to continue to offer quality, affordable housing at that location, and this exemption would allow them to do that.
Okay, I think that's ready. 14.
Good afternoon, Council. Janet Burke, the Director of Research.
Hi, Janet. Would you like to just describe how this, I don't want to call it a position, but how this funding will be
Right.
used?
Well, we had been hoping that in order to perhaps save the city a little bit of money rather than hiring a person, we had thought if we brought on a consultant who we could pay on an hourly basis to help us write grants, and particularly to begin with to help us write a set of policies and procedures that we more and more need to receive grants. The reporting requirements are becoming pretty heavy lift. So we wrote policies, but some of the funders, particularly the federal funders, weren't entirely happy with what we had. So we were looking for someone with some experience in that, and that would be the first project that this company would work on, in addition to helping us write grants.
Do you have an idea of what kind of hours you're going to get out of this person, or specifically to the grants? So it sounds like they're going to help you get your policies going, but do you have specific grants you're going to assign to them?
That is the way it will be. As the grants come down, we will see which ones would be fit best with our staff, or which ones she may have more expertise in, or whether she's written them before, and then we would probably give them to her.
Do they have a background in lead grant?
And
policies?
I don't know about the lead grant. I'm sorry. I could check on that.
Okay.
So I know it's up to $50,000 at $90 an hour. How you kind of put 3 bullets in the letter? So like you talked about the development of management policies, assisting, and the second one's assisting in implementing policies that they suggest, and then it's the actually doing responding to grants and writing grants. So how do you see the distribution of their work? Is it going to be mostly,
I see the distribution of the work.
Is the doing grant applications like the last thing in, and maybe they won't do any of that, or is it?
No, the grant that I would right now. Initially, the policies and the procedures are going to be the first thing that we're going to concentrate on. That will involve meeting with department heads, pulling together their processes, and trying to organize all of that. Next would be writing grants. That would be primarily those two.
And then do you have some framework for when you decide where you would no longer want a consultant but want a full-time person? Like, how do you evaluate the trade-off?
Well, we certainly have work for a full-time person. We were thinking this might be fiscally more responsible at this time.
I see.
How long does the policy aspect of it last? Do you think that's done in a month, 2 months, 3 months?
I would think it'll take probably 3 months.
Okay, and then do you expect the $50,000 to last through the remainder of the year?
Oh, absolutely. Actually, we had hoped to get this started earlier in the beginning of the fiscal year. So absolutely, that will definitely last us.
Just trying to get an idea if we think that this person's going to be a, big time grant writer, or just really here for the policy aspect of it.
I actually both. I think a lot of the timing, once the policies and procedures are done, then we'll move on to primarily grant writing.
Thank you, Mrs. Burke.
I just want to say thanks to you, Janet, for doing this, because I look at this as an investment in potential income, and I appreciate your leadership on getting that done.
Thank you.
And I appreciate it too, but I just have one more question for
Sure.
you. So I know that in our structure that a lot of different departments write grants.
Mm-hmm.
So are we going to bring everything together?
Well,
Because
we've been working towards that. My department is now down to 2 of us again. So it's been a little bit hard to get our arms around. We assist with almost every grant, with neighborhood and business development, with planning. We assist. We don't completely write every grant at this point, but they all go through our office, and I have a list of all of them. I know where they all are, but we are not writing all of the grants at this point.
You do review them, though.
I do.
Where's this group from?
Syracuse.
They are?
Yeah.
Nice.
Her name is in the back. On Sue's point of it being probably a smart way of allocating our resources, do you think you can track what grants we apply to and how much money we get from this?
Sure,
so that
absolutely.
Next year, if we're doing the same thing, you can say,
Yeah.
remember last year we did this $50,000 and we actually ended up getting $6 million in grants or something
Absolutely.
like that.
Yeah, that was certainly the plan.
That would be a great stat to share.
Sure.
And then just on general grant stuff, I'm definitely open to anything we can do to make grants as centralized as possible. Like the other day I was having a conversation about a tree issue with the arborist, and he was like, I got to do grants, reporting, compliance, something, and it seems like to the extent we can allow an arborist to be an arborist and allow
Absolutely, and we do work with Steve. We do work with Steve on that.
Sure, but it seems like
some of the
there's so much
reporting
potential
requirements are tough.
Yeah.
So we would, in a perfect world, we would really love to be able to handle all of that.
Right, I understand you're 2 people, so. All right, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mrs. Burke.
Any questions on 15? It's just allocating a special object of expense. All that ready. And then we have discussed an executive session previously, item 16, so I will call that ready.
Thank you. Councilor Green.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, councilors. Mary Robison, city engineer. Item 17 is related to the McGuire Family Limited Partnership project on Hiawatha Boulevard and State Fair Boulevard. They're renovating one building and building a new building, so this is to accept lining a 10-inch combined sewer on Waite Ave from State Fair Boulevard to Dewey Ave to meet their one-on-one offset sanitary requirement.
Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Number 18, Corey. You want to just give us a full description of everything happening here?
Sure. I'm Corey Driscoll-Dunham, Director of Operations for the city. This is a revision of our snow removal contractor ordinance. It really addresses private snowplow operators. There was some cleanup that we needed to do in the ordinance. It requires the drivers to carry a book of all the residences that they plow, which is just not realistic, so we changed that to records. It says that we'll give them a license plate, which we no longer give. We give a decal. The fine for not having a license was actually less than the cost of the license. So those are some updates that we did. One of the other things that we included was, and this was based on some feedback that we got last year, was that the $250 license fee doesn't really take into account some of the larger companies that really, in general, comply by the rules but have an entire fleet of snow maintenance vehicles. And so in acknowledgement of that, rather than $250 per vehicle, it was $250 for the first, and we proposed $50 for any subsequent vehicles, so that we're still obtaining revenue, but not being punitive to those that have a larger fleet. And like I said, usually, and speaking with the police department and DPW, are usually not the ones that were concerned about dumping snow in the wrong place or driving without a license or any of the other things that are required. So these are the updates to the existing ordinance.
So the enforcement's done by who?
The enforcement is done primarily by the Syracuse Police Department. I know that previously the council had given DPW some of the authority to do the enforcement, and we have ongoing conversations between Public Works and the police because whether or not that's really a safe idea for a Public Works employee to be confronting private snowplow operators who might be not obeying the rules or dumping snow where they shouldn't. And one of the ideas we've explored is that maybe Public Works, if they can document what's going on, would then reach out to the police department. And with that information, the police might be able to take action. But we just don't know from a safety perspective whether it's really appropriate for Public Works employees to be, they're just not trained in that type of interaction to, at 4 o'clock in the morning, be confronting someone who might be dumping snow where they shouldn't.
Did we write any tickets last year?
I'm not sure. I can find out whether or not we did.
What kind of outreach have we done or will we do to the snowplow operators to let them know about the changes?
And I'm hoping that once if the ordinance passes, that we can, this will be part of our rollout of upcoming winter initiatives, because I know there's been some miscommunication in the past where private operators thought that a license for one reason or another was no longer required. And certainly last year when we had more attention and publicized a bit more of our winter operations, that's often when they got the message. And so we did have a flood of private plow operators come in to get licenses. So although I think the word is out, we will continue to do more outreach publicly to let people know. And I think it's also helpful for residents to know that if you're acquiring the services of a private plow operator, you should ensure that they have a license.
Yeah, I think one of the things I would imagine a lot of us would think is that for us to vote on this, we would want to know that there was input or that there was outreach to the operators so that they agree with what it is. So I think to the extent that you're able to share that with us or do that in the interim, and then I'll touch base with my colleagues to see if we need to have a committee meeting on this or how best to go forward.
Okay.
Any other questions on this? Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks, Corey.
Good afternoon, councilors. Mary Vosser, Budget Director. Number 19 is a piece of legislation to approve the 1 year option with our city's energy consultants, Energy Automations, Inc. It follows the calendar year. They provide us with audits of national grid bills and work with us on our bids when we go out for energy and natural gas bids.
Have we seen any savings from them before?
They're quite really, really good with the national grid bills. Many times the city gets double punches on their energy usage and they catch it right away. They give me a monthly report on what we've used the city has over almost 285 accounts. And yes, they're very watchful over that.
285 accounts?
285 energy accounts, yes. Every light you see in a park is an account with grid.
Any other questions? Thank you. Number 20.
These are all the salt stuff, huh?
Mm-hmm. Well, this one's parking too.
Good afternoon. Any questions? It's fairly straightforward.
Yeah, I was just curious on, I just want to clarify exactly what this is saying.
So it's basically that the owners of Park Place have secured a tenant who is requesting 26 monthly parking permits in the Fayette Street parking garage.
And that's going forward for 10 years? They're buying them at 10 years outright?
Yeah, it must be the tenant is committing to a 10-year commitment.
At $85 a month?
I mean, it will,
Vary throughout.
whatever the monthly market rate is, currently it's $85, including taxes.
And how is that determined?
How is the monthly market? It's a good question.
The council sets
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the council does, they decide what the rate is. And I, from conversations with the folks that oversee our garages, we feel that it's competitive with other garages.
So ostensibly with we just charge them by month.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not paying up front or anything. So
No, it would
they
be a
just pay the
monthly.
1 month, and then they hold a reserve for the option to hold on to those spaces for 10 years.
Right.
Thank you.
21, 22, 23 are all salt. Is there any questions on that? Thank you.
I was just curious if, are we selling that at cost?
We add $5 for a
So
fee
the
to each
42
ton.
is the at cost, and then the $5
Yes.
is the administration fee?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions on 24, which is another parking one?
Is that the same deal?
Yeah, there's
Pretty much. You don't have to, you can just say yes.
No, sorry. It's
I'm
I'm getting my steps in. No, it's all good. So they had a pre-existing ordinance, and they're amending it to some of their staffing needs have changed, and so the maximum amount of spaces they would need now, we're changing the minimum and maximum, which was 65 to 95, to 40 and 65, just because their staffing needs have changed. So they've just made this request.
Okay.
At market rate?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Councilor Carney, taken by Councilor Ryan.
Thank you, Madam President. Councilor Carney has items 25 and 26.
Good afternoon, Julie Lefebvre, Commissioner of Parks and Recreation. 25 is to accept an in-kind donation of bat boxes for a Girl Scout brownie troop to be installed in Berry Park.
Does it come with any cookies?
I didn't ask.
Yeah. Next time, barter for cookies.
Okay.
It's a deal breaker.
Okay. Number 26 is just to amend an ordinance for our golf instruction. We had a higher number than ever of participants, so we need to pay the instructor accordingly.
Great. Questions? Okay, I will speak with Councilor Carney. I don't think there should be any issues with that.
Councilor Ryan.
Thank you, Madam President. I have item 27. It's a resolution to fill my spot on the Land Bank Advisory Board with Karen Schroeder, and I'm moving that forward.
Thank you. Councilor Boyle.
Thank you. I have item number 28, and I see Dean and Suzanne are here. Can somebody talk to me about 20? I wanted to ask you a couple of questions about the buses. This is to take advantage of our 3-year renewal option in our contract.
Right,
for
so
student.
I'm Suzanne Slack, CFO for the school district. This is for the first student contract, which is the yellow buses for the school district. The rates are set when we do an RFP, and then they're allowed to increase each year by an amount set by New York State. So statewide, they set what's similar to a CPI, but for transportation. So we build into the contract that it could go up to 5% increase each year over those 3 years. So if you look at this, it looks like about a 16% cumulative increase. That's the most it could be. What we've seen over the last several years is between 1.8 and 2.4 increase each year. So not a significant real increase.
So Suzanne, our other option would be to put the busing out to bid, correct?
So when we put together transportation contracts, they're 3 years with 3-year options, which follows the state law. What we have found when we go to bid is the prices go up significantly, because when you're in a contract with a local provider, they know that they're held to the state limit. Once you go to bid, it opens up that limit for that first year. We haven't seen a lot of competition locally. There is Bernie Bus and Laidlaw who have bid in the past, but their prices have actually been higher than First Student, and there's concern about their capacity locally to serve us with the number of buses and drivers that we need.
That was something that I was going to bring up, because I've had many complaints this year about busing, particularly the First Student busing, the yellow buses, taking the kids to Catholic schools and buses not coming, buses coming an hour late. I'm sure you've heard these. I know the school board's been made aware of these. I've never received so many calls with busing complaints at the beginning of the year, and I just wondered if we're really that satisfied with the service that First Student's providing. Or, I mean, are they our only option, or is there a
Options are
possibility of
limited
holding them?
locally. I will say that, but First Student has done a tremendous job this year in accessing more drivers. Nationally, there's a shortage of bus drivers, and certainly here in Syracuse, we're no exception. Last year, we did have, at the end of the year, routes that weren't covered that other drivers had to fill in for. So this year, they have adequate number of buses, adequate number of drivers. We've had a lot of buses break down at the start of the school year, and every Monday's a new cycle. The kids move and their routing changes. So the start of the week is kind of the start of buses being late again or missing children at stops because of the changes in the routing. But I would say overall this year we're more satisfied than how it was going last year at the same time.
I've never received so many complaints about it.
If you'll share those calls with us or have them call our transportation office, we can address their issues.
Well, one of the things people are telling me is that they aren't told to call the transportation office anymore. They're told to call First Student directly with their issues. Is this a new policy? Because this is what I'm hearing from my constituents who call me about it. I usually just forward my issues to the school board.
They can either call First Student directly, they can call our transportation department directly, and we're also working on an application with First Student where parents can have an app on their phone. It's called My Bus Rider, and they can find out where their child is on the bus at that particular time. So we think that's going to be a big help for the phone calls.
Is that the GPS location?
It's a monitoring system, yeah. It's a GPS monitoring system. It'll track their child's bus, the estimated time when the child is going to arrive to their stop.
Okay, but there's no new policy where people are supposed to not call the transportation office?
No, we invite, if they can't get through to transportation or First Student, they can always call our office.
And is part of their contract some sort of customer service element, or?
Yes, there are service standards in the contract, and last year we did invoke penalties and fines to First Student when they didn't have enough drivers or enough buses, or they were late consistently without making improvements. So we did impose fines.
Are there any opportunities to raise those fines?
No, not in the current contract.
Okay. Anybody else have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to Councilor Boyle's expressed concern. I also, just as a point of information, and maybe central office doesn't know about it, but when parents call, they are calling First Student and they're getting a recording. And principals sometimes are saying, well, I don't know where the bus is, and they're kind of left in limbo, trying to figure out where their kids. So I've had at least 2 situations like that. So I just wanted to kind of echo what she was saying.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. Hopefully the app will help with that, so even a principal could look and see where in the route a bus is actually.
And the Catholic school kids too. I'm getting calls from Catholic school parents that their kids aren't getting to school for like an hour after school starts regularly.
On the yellow bus, or is this at the high schools?
We've dealt with the Catholic schools. We certainly don't want to be in bad situation with the nuns, so we'll do all we can to help.
Thanks.
I have one question. Is there a lack of funding for bus monitors? Because as far as I know, there's not a monitor on every bus. So is there a lack of funding for that?
We have bus monitors on our special education buses, so if there is a wheelchair, a handicap bus, or a bus for a special needs student, there are monitors on those buses, but we don't put monitors on every bus.
And you guys don't think that that's appropriate? You don't think it's needed?
It certainly is something that could be used.
Yeah.
It comes down to a matter of funding.
Okay. And you guys are saying you don't have the funding for that?
I think we'd have to look at our budget allocation and
Okay.
prioritize.
Okay. Because a lot of things happen on the bus.
Absolutely.
And the bus driver can't monitor the kids and drive safely at the same time. So if you could look into it, I would appreciate it.
So, this contract's from 2015, and we changed our busing last year from 2 miles to 1.5. How's that play into this?
That's for high school only, so that's Centro bus, so it wouldn't affect the yellow bus.
Yeah, and I was going to piggyback off of that. My mentor, Joyce Suslovic, obviously has been on a mission for a number of years now to get it from 1.5 miles down to 1 mile. If we approve this, does that rule that out? Is that conversation over if we, go forward with this contract? Is that conversation ever, are we going to, do you have any projection that we'll get to 1 mile eventually, or do you think it's not reasonable, or what's your take on it?
This contract won't negate that effort. We have gone to the state to ask for permission to do that. Really what's holding us up is the state approving us going from 1.5 miles to something less than that, because it would impact the funding.
So that's a state protocol that it's 1.5 miles?
Yes,
For
yes.
reimbursement. We were just on a conference call with the commissioner this past week, and the big 5 schools are all asking for the same thing. They would like to reduce that to less than 1.5 miles.
And so that needs to be approved by the state?
Yes, so what you might see in suburban schools is they pick up every child regardless of how close they live to the school, because they're using local taxpayer dollars to fund that. We don't have that option, so we're really pushing hard for the legislature to allow us to give our kids the same opportunities as suburban kids.
So it sounds like something we need to take up with our state reps.
Again, every year we do bring this up, so support from you would actually be very helpful.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll call that ready. Let's see, I have items 29, 30, 31, and 32. 29, 30, and 31 are all labor contracts that have been negotiated.
Yes.
They've all made health insurance concessions and have been agreeable with the city, so I'm ready to call those ready. And then number 30, unless anyone has any questions? Tim?
Do you have the dollar amounts for each of the clauses in the labor agreements?
I don't have them. I don't have them at the moment.
Can you share them when you have them?
Yes,
please. Thank you.
And is that all? Any other questions?
I have that question for all the labor contracts.
You'll have those numbers.
And item number 32 is a flu clinic for first responders at the fairgrounds, correct?
Well, actually, we're putting on a flu clinic. In fact, the last time we were together, and we put, I guess I'd call it the civilian flu clinics, where we have 2. One is on October 4th at DPW tomorrow, and another flu clinic is going to be on the 10th of October in the City Hall Commons atrium. Typically, those are the 2 that we do. However, the day that I was at the microphone or was prepared to come to the mic on that, the county advised us that they were not going to be funding the first responder drive-through as they usually do for police and fire, not just for our city first responders, but also countywide. So we want to make sure that our folks are adequately protected, and so we reached out again to you for authorization to work through PROACT for that. And so we're going to have that flu clinic with the help of the organization of the Chief of Fire. We're going to do this at the training center on the 11th of October. So.
Was there an indication on why the county cut that out?
No.
Drive-through?
Do we know if it's reflected?
They would host a drive up through the state fairgrounds. They had they just put the window down, stick your arm out, and cry later, I guess.
It was for first responders. It was a first responders drive-through, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, but thank you for picking that up. I appreciate it.
Yep.
And I'm going to call that ready.
Is that, if you don't mind me asking just a personal kind of selfish question, I called to make an appointment, and can you just show up for those flu shots, or do you need to solidify an appointment before you go?
It helps. It just gives us a
number. So if I've left a message, then that's adequate enough warning?
There was a link in the appointment.
I think we can squeeze you in. So.
Oh, a digital link online?
They tell you you're signed up, and you can still come in anytime.
I called the phone number. Okay, I'll come through.
Anytime we can stick a counselor,
Make them bleed. Make them bleed.
And before I move on, I was remiss in calling out Syracuse Academy of Science students that's here with us today. Thank you for being here, Syracuse Academy. Councilor Allen.
Thank you. I have items 33 through 45. 33.
Okay. Good afternoon. I'm Yolanda Johnson, Construction Development Coordinator. I have item number 33. Property owners asking, they're requesting permission for a minor encroachment at 321 South Salina Street to add on to the marquee at the Bank Alley entrance. This will encroach 3 feet 6 inches into the South Salina Street right of way.
Okay.
Good.
34.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, councilors. Heather Lamandola, zoning administrator. Number 34 is a special permit on Burnett Avenue for a restaurant.
We do have Andrea came. They wanted to just take a few minutes just to kind of give us an overview of what the project is.
Hello, I'm Julie Briggs-Leone. My husband and I are the owners of the listening room at 443. I just wanted to explain a little bit about the project that we're trying to do. Our vision for the listening room is a comfortable cafe and lounge. We plan to serve coffee, wine, locally crafted beer, and classic cocktails. We do not have a kitchen. We have a very, very limited food menu. So I think calling us a restaurant is a little bit of a stretch. Live acoustic music will be a focus of what we're doing. We named our venture the Listening Room not because of the style of shows we will produce, although that's certainly a big part of it. We also want it to be a place of community gathering, of creativity, and listening in every sense of the word: book signings, readings, roundtable discussions, classes, and a hub for grassroots community efforts. Our live music and other events will run 6 to 9 p.m. The business will close at 10 p.m. Our goal is to be a positive addition to the Holly Green neighborhood without any negative impact on our neighbors. The response that we've had thus far from area neighbors has been overwhelmingly positive. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
And I'm Andrea Wandersee with NEDA, and I just wanted to let you know that NEDA strongly supports this effort that was misrepresented in your notes there. So NEDA really thinks this is a terrific addition to the neighborhood, and we have no concerns about the special permit request.
Where exactly is it?
We are located directly across from the old train station. We are between Catherine and Howard, right next door to Bonton Glass. It's the former OPL, Mrs. O'Leary's location.
OPL.
Julie, I would agree with you that the designation of a restaurant and special permit process is incredibly vague and broad, and you know, I'm sorry that you had to fall into this. Guys.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Thanks, LaToya.
You're welcome.
Item 35 is another special permit, and this is a modification to an existing restaurant at 1524 to 1530 South Salina Street. It's the existing KFC.
Okay, and this is just, they're upgrading the outside, the sign and...
Yes, the signage and the facade area, so corporate upgrade, kind of regional. A lot of them are doing that across this area.
Any questions on that? Okay, thank you. All right, and now items 36 through 45. because you really have to write your name.
Good afternoon, councilors. My name is Stephanie Pasquale. I'm the Commissioner for Neighborhood and Business Development. All but 4 items are in the land bank agenda here are from last time. The last 4 on your agenda are new items, and they represent 2 rental occupied, 1 vacant, and 1 occupied commercial property.
Okay. So for starters, I would like to, I'm gonna hold 36 still. And I would like to withdraw items 39, 40, and 41. And were there any other questions on the other items?
As a person who's optically challenged now, I would ask once again if you could get these in a font that I can see.
Sorry.
I forgot my reading glasses today.
Stephanie, can you tell me item number 43, is that the furniture store?
I'm sorry, is that the what? I didn't hear that.
Is that a furniture store?
We have it as rental occupied. I believe it's a 2-family structure.
I'm holding number 37.
37, okay. And number 38, I know last time Councilor Carney wanted to hold that, so I'll hold it and then see if he's ready to move on it by Monday.
Can I ask a question about 40 and 41? I heard some grumblings. What's the latest?
So they are working out a plan as far as being able to, well, Stephanie, I guess you can, did you want to give them an overview of the?
Sure, I'd be happy to brief you in full later, but we think we have a workable solution. I think I'm supportive of it. I think it's a good idea to work with them on a solution, a long-term solution that works for them.
Okay, I just was wondering.
Right. Yeah, I believe they tried to reach out to you ahead of time, but we were able to talk to them, and Stephanie talked to them as well, so we're willing to work with them. Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions?
All done? All righty, and before we move to adjourn, I hope I see everybody back here on Tuesday, being Monday is a holiday, so we won't be meeting on Monday. I'll see everybody on Tuesday. With that, I need a motion to adjourn. Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you, we're adjourned.